You know, sometimes you just want a truly silly comedy to turn your brain off to and have a good time with. One that almost feels like a cartoonish story set in a live action world. And I certainly think 1990's Men at Work, starring Emilio Estevez and Charlie Sheen, is definitely one of those movies. This Weekend at Bernie's meets Garbage Man movie is a bit obscure. It's definitely forgotten, but it's a delightfully silly riot set in a small beach town. I think the laughs are non-stop, so let's get into it. What's up out there, guys? Thanks for checking out this video. I'm Anthony DeJoya. This is Movies Never Say Die, your one-stop shop for 80s and 90s retro reviews, and today I'm diving into an absolutely goofy movie, one that just so happens to be an all-time personal favorite of mine. There's just something about this movie, the escape that it provides, that is just perfect when life is stressing and a mental break is needed, because this movie, it's wild plot and its likable characters, regardless of all the flaws, is mindless fun at its best. Men at Work was actually written, directed by, and starring Emilio Estevez. This movie was his baby. He came up with the plot when he was living in a Santa Monica apartment when filming St. Elmo's Fire. He said he was up in the wee hours of the morning on the computer working out some story ideas when a garbage truck came rumbling down the quiet streets. He looked out and it dawned on him that no one had ever made a movie, much less a comedy, revolving around garbage men, so that's where it began. The original title of this movie was going to be Clear Intent, which was then changed to Pop 65 to kind of tie it in with the environmental angle of the subplot, but it was then changed to Men at Work. Estevez reportedly wrote around 15 drafts of this story that would see two normal garbage men that get pulled into an illegal toxic dumping operation, complete with hitmen, a kidnapped pizza man, and a pellet gun at the core of it all.
What are you doing? Oh, you and your stupid pellet gun! Get off of me!
Now, it was originally intended to have one of Estevez's Brat Pack buddies star alongside of him in this movie, like potentially Judd Nelson, but after reading the final script and really wanting to do another comedy at this point in his career, Estevez's real-life brother Charlie Sheen would take the part, which I think is the perfect choice because Sheen and Estevez are so natural and so funny together to really sell themselves as the best buds they're supposed to be in this movie. Epic Productions would greenlight this movie. Men at Work would be given a $9 million budget, and filming would begin in March of 1989 throughout Redondo and Hermosa Beach, as well as in parts of Los Angeles and San Pedro. Unhappy with the original ending that they were given, which I couldn't find the details on, the studio requested a reshoot, which did extend production about 2 weeks longer than it was supposed to be, and Estevez would reportedly edit much of this film at night while filming Young Guns 2 during the day. And once it was completed, Men at Work would drop into theaters very quietly on August 24th, 1990, pulling in a modest $3.1 million its opening weekend in only 962 theaters to take the number 7 spot. The movie never really would take off, but it would pull in a respectable $16.2 million during its run, which isn't bad for its smaller budget. Naturally, critics weren't too favorable of this movie, but I do contend that it's a great time, and I think it has plenty of pieces to provide a fun adventure filled with lots of laughs and splashes of fun action. And I really do think Men at Work is kind of unassuming, but I think it's layered nicely for a range of different laughs. First, you have Emilio Estevez as James St. James, and you have Charlie Sheen as Carl Taylor, just common garbage men who surf at lunch and throw trash cans and roll bowling balls into the street. They're a pair of young, carefree troublemakers. St. James sleeps out on the beach. Taylor spies on people with his binoculars, and their rebellious, free-spirited lifestyle, I think, makes them really just instantly likable throughout this story. Men at Work also delivers a plot that I think is a complete exercise in silly humor. You get this crooked city councilman. He's involved in this illegal toxic dumping scheme off the coast with this dirty businessman. He has a change of heart and he's going to come clean. Meanwhile, you have St. James and Taylor just living their lives as garbage men, wreaking havoc while collecting their trash. And one night, while drinking beers, they see a man mistreating a woman in the building across the street. So, like any adult would do, Taylor shoots him in the ass with a pellet gun.
I mean, what are you gonna accomplish using that stupid thing? It allows me to seriously aggravate a situation without actually changing the course of history. It also stings like a bitch.
I will admit there is some logic to his thought, and he isn't completely wrong. The only problem is this man is that same city councilman who's about to be killed by a pair of bumbling hitmen before he can expose this illegal dumping operation. James and Taylor are going to find him in the trash the next morning, and that's when all comical hell breaks loose over the course of an afternoon and evening, and I think it's all as fantastic as it is ridiculous. It's endearingly dumb, but I think it has a sound structure to it, and it uses as many filmmaking aspects as possible to create laughs, from the upbeat music to the writing to the characters to the plot, the editing. It's really all designed for laughs, because I really do think an engaging comedy needs to have all its pieces in the right place, and I think all those pieces need to really gel well together, and I think they do that here to result in a very swift moving, fun beach town adventure that never gets stale. Taylor's been spying on this woman across the street. She coincidentally works on the city councilman's staff. This connects St. James and Taylor to the main plot, and then you get the main story wrinkles from there. With the main wrinkle being St. James and Taylor getting stuck with an observer on their route in response to all the citizen complaints about their work behavior. This brings the film Keith David, who's fantastic in this movie. I think he subtly steals the show as the crazed veteran who gets pulled into the nonsense with St. James and Taylor because essentially he has nothing else to do. I think David plays up this role to perfect comedic effect, and I think with Estevez and Sheen, that Men at Work really does have a solid trio to lead its riff on Weekend at Bernie's. And then you get the smaller pieces that build it out from there, like the two bumbling hitmen, Mario and Biff, who are absolutely the dumbest assassins of all time. Then you get Susan, the woman across the street, who becomes Sheen's love interest. You also get the two bicycle cops, Mike and Jeff, who have it out for St. James and Taylor just because they've heard all the complaints but never have been able to catch them doing something in the act. And then you get Frost and Lazinski, two of their co-workers who throughout this film go back and forth with escalating levels of juvenile pranks, and not to forget the innocent pizza delivery guy who gets wrapped up in all the comical chaos as well. So as you can see, for a tight 90-minute movie, Men at Work is full throttle ridiculousness, and it all works because of the comical writing, the situational laughs, and a cast that absolutely knew what the tone of the story was supposed to be. Everybody delivers an animated performance that's just right for the needs of their roles, and there's just something likable about all their varying levels of cartoonish personalities. But like I said, Estevez, Sheen, and David are the driving force of this film. Estevez and Sheen have a great natural chemistry with one another. Both are very comical in their own way, but I mean, Keith David undeniably steals the spotlight without question. I think he's completely nuts. He delivers some very quotable lines, some of the film's most comical moments, and his lack of concern for all the madness happening around him is unassumingly hilarious, and he's an awesome wild card character that's thrown into this goofy story.
Rent-a-cops. I hate rent-a-cops too.
So when you take all of these pieces and you toss it into a charming, sunny Southern California beach town, it definitely creates an appealing atmosphere and a fun summer vibe that ends up turning into one crazy night that definitely feels like a product of the 80s, from airbags full of shit to exploding cars to taser guns and a pellet gun. This movie weaves a wild adventure fueled by humor and an upbeat score and soundtrack that just emphasizes the humorous tone of this movie perfectly. Men at Work is just a movie that's having fun with itself, so I think you naturally can have fun with it if you don't mind dumb laughs. I think Estevez's direction maneuvers the comedy capably, and it's a forgotten film, but it's certainly a guilty pleasure pick for comedy fans. It's a movie that's near and dear to my heart, so of course I'm going to give it an A+. I think this is a top tier slapstick comedy that isn't really slapstick comedy, and if you haven't seen it, I'd highly recommend it. And that's my review of Men at Work. I've been wanting to review this movie for a while now, so I really hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have seen this movie, let me know what you thought of it in the comments below, and until the next video, Movies never say die.
This is Jack Burton in the Pork Chop Express, and I'm talking to whoever's listening out there.
Survive a war, you gotta become war.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
You trying to say Jesus Christ can't hit a curveball?